Dad wrote me a check for $200,000 the week before he died. She cashed it the day after. At the funeral, she wore my dead mother's pearls and whispered, "Your father loved me more." She didn't know Dad had a second will. The lawyer read it at the reception. Her face when she heard the first line. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community. My name is Margot Sinclair, and I'm 31 years old. 6 months ago, I buried my father in Charleston, South Carolina, in the same cemetery where my mother has rested for 12 years. I buried him knowing that the woman standing next to me in a black Chanel dress had stolen from him on his deathbed. I buried him knowing she thought she had won. She hadn't. My father, William Sinclair, was a real estate developer who built half the luxury condos in downtown Charleston. He wasn't flashy about his money, drove a 10-year-old truck, wore the same 3 suits on rotation, donated anonymously to the Children's Hospital every Christmas. But he was worth $8.7 million when he died. And every penny of it was contested. My mother, Josephine, died of ovarian cancer when I was 19. She was the love of my father's life. They met at a church picnic in 1985 and were inseparable for 26 years. When she died, something in my father died too. He stopped going to the office. He stopped eating dinner at the table we'd shared as a family. He sat in his study and stared at her portrait for hours. That's when Denise appeared. She was a grief counselor at the hospice center where my mother spent her final weeks. Blonde, polished, 15 years younger than my father. She showed up at our house 3 months after the funeral with a casserole and a concerned smile. She said she was checking in on him. She never left. They were married within a year. I was 20 years old, a junior at Duke, and I watched my father slip away from me in real time. Denise didn't like me visiting. She said it upset my father to be reminded of the past. She redecorated the house, removing every photograph of my mother. She sold my mother's car. She donated my mother's clothes without asking me if I wanted anything. But she kept the jewelry. My mother's jewelry, the pearls my grandmother brought from Italy, the diamond earrings my father gave her on their 20th anniversary, the sapphire ring that had been in our family for 4 generations. Denise kept all of it. "Your father gave them to me," she said when I asked. "He wanted me to have them." I didn't believe her. But my father was different now. Quieter. Slower. When I tried to talk to him about it, his eyes went glassy and he changed the subject. Denise was always hovering, always listening, always redirecting conversations away from anything that mattered. I pulled away. I finished college, moved to Raleigh for work, and saw my father maybe 3 times a year. Every visit, he looked smaller. Every visit, Denise looked more entrenched. She had rewritten the narrative of our family, and my father was too tired to fight it. Then last spring, I got the call. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 3 months to live, maybe less. I drove to Charleston that night. When I walked into the hospital room, my father was alone. Denise was getting coffee. He looked at me with eyes that were suddenly clear, suddenly sharp, suddenly the father I remembered from before. "Margot," he said, "I need to tell you some things. And I need you to listen carefully." He talked for 2 hours. He told me he knew what Denise had done. The isolation, the manipulation, the way she had slowly erased my mother from our home. He told me he had been too weak, too grief-stricken, too medicated to fight back. He told me he was sorry. "I never stopped loving your mother," he said. "And I never stopped loving you. I just lost my way." Then he told me about the money. "Denise thinks everything is in joint accounts," he said. "But I've been moving funds for the past 2 years. There's a second will with my real estate attorney, Marcus Webb. The one Denise knows about leaves her the house and the joint accounts. The one she doesn't know about leaves you everything else. Everything else was $6.2 million in a trust she didn't know existed." He reached into the drawer beside his hospital bed and pulled out a checkbook. His hands were shaking, but his handwriting was clear. "This is for you," he said, tearing off a check. $200,000. It's from an account she doesn't have access to. Cash it before I die, so there's no question it was a gift. And Margot," he gripped my hand with surprising strength, "don't let her take your mother's pearls to the grave. They belong to you. They always belong to you." I took the check. I kissed his forehead. I told him I loved him. He died 8 days later. I never saw him conscious again. The day after his death, I went to the bank to cash the check. The teller typed in the account number, frowned, and typed again. "I'm sorry, ma'am. This check has already been cashed." My blood went cold. That's impossible. My father wrote it to me. She turned the screen toward me. The check had been cashed the previous morning at a branch in Mount Pleasant. The signature on the back wasn't mine. It was Denise's. She had forged my name and stolen $200,000 from a dying man's final gift to his daughter. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I took a photograph of the screen, thanked the teller, and walked out of the bank. Then I called Marcus Webb. "I know," he said before I could finish explaining. "Your father warned me this might happen. We have documentation. We have the trust. And we have something else she doesn't know about." "What?" "Your father recorded a video 2 weeks before he died. It's his testimony about Denise's behavior, his intentions for the estate, and his explicit statement that any checks written to you were gifts, not loans. He knew she might try something. He made sure we could prove it. My father, even on his deathbed, had been protecting me." The funeral was 4 days later. 200 people packed into St. Philip's Church, the same church where my parents were married. Denise played the grieving widow perfectly. Black dress, tasteful tears, a handkerchief she dabbed at her eyes whenever anyone was watching. And around her neck, she wore my mother's pearls. I saw them the moment she walked in. The 3-strand cultured pearl necklace my grandmother had worn on her wedding day in Naples in 1952. The necklace my mother wore in every formal photograph. The necklace that should have been mine. Denise made sure I saw them. She walked up to me before the service, leaned in close, and whispered in my ear. "Your father loved me more. That's why he gave me everything. These pearls, this house, this life, it's all mine now. You can go back to Raleigh and forget you ever had a family." I looked at her. I looked at my mother's pearls resting against her collarbone. And I smiled. "We'll see," I said. The reception was held at my father's house. The house I grew up in, now filled with Denise's furniture and Denise's art and Denise's friends murmuring condolences while eyeing the silver. I stood in the corner, watching, waiting. At 3 p.m., Marcus Webb arrived. He was a tall man in his 60s, silver-haired, with the quiet authority of someone who had spent 40 years handling wealthy families' secrets. He walked through the crowd, nodded at me, and approached Denise. "Mrs. Sinclair, I need to speak with you privately. It's regarding the estate." Denise's smile flickered. "Can't this wait? We're in the middle of." "It cannot wait. And I think you'll want the family present." She didn't have a choice. Marcus led her to the study, my father's study, the one she had redecorated to erase every trace of him, and closed the door. I followed. So did Denise's sister, who she had brought for moral support, and my cousin Thomas, who had driven up from Savannah. Marcus set his briefcase on the desk and removed a folder. "I'm here to read William Sinclair's last will and testament," he said. "The authentic one." Denise's face went pale. "I've already seen the will. He left everything to me." "He left you a will," Marcus said. "He left his daughter the real one." He began to read. "I, William Edward Sinclair, being of sound mind and body, do hereby revoke all previous wills and testaments. This document, dated February 14th of this year, represents my final and true wishes." February 14th, Valentine's Day. The day my mother died 12 years ago. My father had signed his real will on the anniversary of losing her. Marcus continued. "To my wife, Denise Marie Sinclair, I leave the sum of $50,000 and the contents of our joint checking account, currently totaling approximately $43,000. This is the extent of her inheritance, as she has already taken far more than she deserves during our marriage." Denise's sister gasped. Denise's face went from pale to gray. "To my daughter, Margot Josephine Sinclair, I leave the entirety of my estate, including the Sinclair Family Trust valued at approximately $6.2 million. All real estate holdings including the family home at 14 Laguerre Street and all personal property not specifically designated to my wife. This includes, explicitly, all jewelry belonging to my first wife, Josephine, which was never legally given to Denise and was held by her without my consent. My mother's pearls. My mother's diamonds. My mother's sapphire ring. All of it mine." Marcus looked up at Denise. "There's more." He pulled out a tablet and pressed play. My father's face appeared on the screen, thin, exhausted, but lucid. He was sitting in his hospital bed, the same bed where he'd given me the check. "This is William Sinclair. I am recording this video to document my wishes and to provide evidence of certain events in case my written will is contested. My wife, Denise, has systematically isolated me from my daughter, stolen jewelry belonging to my late wife, Josephine, and manipulated me during a period of profound grief. I was not of sound mind when I married her. I am of sound mind now. He paused, coughing, then continued. To Margot, I'm sorry I wasn't stronger. Your mother would be ashamed of how I let Denise treat you. But I'm making it right. Everything I have is yours. Don't let her take what belongs to our family. And sweetheart, his voice cracked. The pearls were always meant for you. Your grandmother told your mother to pass them to her daughter. That's you. That was always you. The video ended. The room was silent. Denise stood up, her hands shaking. This is fraud. He was dying. He wasn't competent. I'll contest this in court. You're welcome to try, Marcus said calmly. But I should mention that we've also filed a report with the Charleston County Sheriff's Office regarding the $200,000 check you forged and cashed. That's felony fraud, Mrs. Sinclair. The bank has security footage of you at the teller window. Your signature is on file. If you contest this will, we will pursue criminal charges. Denise looked at me. For the first time since I'd known her, she looked afraid. Margot, she said, your father wouldn't want this. He loved me. We can work something out. Take off the pearls, I said. What? Take off my mother's pearls. Right now. They don't belong to you. They never belonged to you. Her hands went to her neck. For a moment, I thought she would refuse. Then she looked at Marcus, at the folder of evidence, at the video still paused on my father's face. She unclasped the necklace and set it on the desk. I picked it up. The pearls were warm from her skin, but I didn't care. I held them in my palm and felt my mother's presence for the first time in 12 years. You have 30 days to vacate the house, Marcus said. After that, Ms. Sinclair will have the locks changed. Denise left the reception without saying goodbye to anyone. Her sister followed, already on the phone with what I assumed was a lawyer. They could try whatever they wanted. The evidence was overwhelming. The video was unimpeachable. And the forged check was a crime that would follow her for the rest of her life. She never contested the will. The criminal case is still pending. Last I heard, she was living in a rental apartment in Columbia, selling furniture on Facebook Marketplace to make rent. I moved back into the Laguerre Street house last month. I put my mother's photographs back on the walls. I hung her portrait in the study where my father used to sit and stare. I wear her pearls every Sunday to church, the same church where she and my father were married. Some nights, I sit in the study and talk to both of them. I tell my mother I'm taking care of her jewelry. I tell my father I forgive him. I tell them both that Denise didn't win. She thought she could erase my mother's memory. She thought she could steal my inheritance. She thought she could whisper cruelty at a funeral and walk away untouched. But my father was smarter than she knew. And my mother raised me to fight. If you've ever had to protect your family's legacy from someone who didn't deserve it, share your story below. And if you believe the truth always comes out, subscribe.